Well, good morning, everyone. As you see, Pastor Gary and all of the Perkins crew are gone. They are in heaven. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, we're all left. We have a lot of things to work on. That's why I'm here. Um, I'm just kidding. Aaron and Ryan are getting married today. Woo! So they are going to be getting married today. So if you are there, I will see you there. But this morning, like my terrible joke, we have a lot of things to work on. And it's mainly just me. So y'all can hear what God has told me, and you can learn from that. Me and Gary have a lot of different things about us. It's pretty much the only thing we have in common is that neither one of us have a chance in the NBA. So Pastor Gary brings the fire every Sunday and is very inspiring, motivating. He has great stories to go along with his sermons. I feel like I'm very blessed to have him as my pastor because every Sunday that I leave, I feel like taking on the world. And so there are aspects about how he preaches that I've tried to develop in my own speaking ability. And God's been giving me a message the past few weeks, and as of yesterday, he said, "You are not preaching that message," which doesn't really happen to me a lot. Pastors say that a lot, and I'm like, how do they know, that they're not supposed to preach that message? And so it doesn't happen to me very often. If I prepare something, that's what I'm speaking on. So today, I'm kind of just giving you more of a testimony. If you don't know, Pastor Gary's been preaching on love in our First Comes Love series, and so I've been trying to stay in that same realm. I was trying to make my sermon that I was working on fit in that, but as of yesterday, God said, "I need you to talk about how you've experienced love and a lack of love in your life because someone needs to hear that." And so it's a little uncomfortable for me to share some of this stuff, but one of my speaking abilities is to be genuine. I hope that at the end of my life, no one ever says that I was a holier than thou type preacher or anything like that, because I always do my best to be transparent and just give you exactly what God has been giving me in my life. So hopefully that helps. So this morning I'm going to start off with just giving you some interactions that I've had with girls. I've talked about different things that I go through every time I go to the store or have an interaction with a child, which is always interesting. But things have been pretty interesting when it comes to the females in my life as well. A lot of what I heard when I was growing up was that, "Oh, he is so cute." And all my friends would be like, "Man, she thinks you're cute." And I'm like, "Nah, just wait for it. He's like a puppy." And I'm like, "See, there you go. You can't be excited about that." What's even worse than that is when I see a girl and friends like, "Hey, go talk to her." And then I go over there. She seems to be excited as I'm getting closer. I'm like, "Hey, this could be good." And then the first thing she says is, "Can I pick you up?" And when I was in elementary school, all my friends would be like, "Dude, that's so awesome. The girls want to pick you up." I'm like, do you realize, I don't know what's more frustrating, the fact that a girl wants to pick me up or that my friends are too dumb to realize that's not a cool thing, for me. That's a strange experience. So I just, no, you cannot buy. Another thing is girls that, because, I say that I had a hard time with love, but I had quite a few girlfriends. I was kind of like Pastor Gary was talking about. He started early, first in kindergarten. So did I. Had my first kiss in kindergarten. Hey, what's up? But a lot of experiences that I had involved girls saying, "Well, I circled yes like Pastor Gary was talking about with the, will you go out with me? I circled yes because I felt sorry for you. And that's a very strange experience. Another thing is I've experienced this multiple times, which is strange. Girls saying, I had to break up with you because you are too nice, which that's kind of like a separate problem that I have. I'm not sure, but I've literally been told I need a bad guy. And so whatever, okay. Probably one of the worst things I've ever heard is, I want a guy just like you, but not you. I'm like, how do I take that, all right? I've had some bad dates before. I had a homecoming date once where I took this girl to homecoming that I didn't really know all that well, but she said yes, so I took her. And I remember going, this is right after I got my car for the first time, and I was excited. I went to her house, I picked her up, and I was trying to be a gentleman, like I'm on a date, so got to do like what they do in the movies, got to open the car door for them. And she was getting in, and I don't know why that she, like as she sat down, maybe she was looking for the seatbelt or something, but I was like, okay, she's in. I went to close the door, and I mean, it sounds, I don't want to say I slammed the car door on her head, because that sounds bad. But essentially, that's what happened. And so I don't know what she was doing, but she leaned over, wham! And so the date started off with a bang. And during the homecoming game, I managed to not only spill some Dr. Pepper on her dress, but some chili as well. I was nervous. And on the way home, I got pulled over for having a tail light out. And so, needless to say, I don't think we had any other interactions. And it was not a good date for me. But my whole life, you know, I've wanted to say that my whole life has revolved around just me doing God's will. And all that my life is about is God. And that's all I've cared about. And that's why I'm up here today, is because I've been the whole time just chasing after God and not thinking about anything else. You know, I went to college at a Bible school in Waxahachie. I graduated with a bachelor's degree. I was a youth pastor for about 5 years, and I would love to say that that's the sum of my life. That's the story of my life, is just hearing the call of God and going after it. But the truth is, there's been a lot more that I've dealt with throughout my life, and a lot of times I have put my calling, what God has called me to do, who He's called me to be, on the back burner. And throughout my life, everything was revolved around finding the one. I wanted to find the one for me. Like I said, I started early. Kindergarten, I was already trying to get a girlfriend, like right at it, right at the top. And my life it seemed like everything revolved around wanting to find that fairy tale, you know, like you see in the movies type stuff, relationship, where someone accepted me for who I was and loved me. And I was constantly thinking about it. It was always in the back of my mind, sometimes in the front of my mind. I was always envisioning it, like trying to imagine what it would be like to have someone that loved me more than anyone else and wanted to be with me the rest of their life. I was always wanting it. I remember in elementary school, we played that game MASH. I think Pastor Gary even mentioned it one time too, you know, are you going to live in a mansion or a shack? And are you going to be married to this person or that person? I remember playing that game and just being like, oh, I can't wait for this MASH game to be real. And I would try to manipulate it by counting the the spirals and being like, okay, that way I can marry her and have a mansion and all this. I was always studying it. I was studying how to be more attractive, I was asking other guys, like, what do you say? Like, how do you act? What do you do? I was comparing myself to other guys. I was asking how they found love. I was always trying to express myself through what I was feeling. I remember as a kid, I went through a phase that some people would call emo. It was just writing poems and writing songs about broken hearts, and I went through that whole phase. I was always trying to express myself. I was always evaluating myself, just being very hard on myself about how I looked, how I was being perceived, how I talked, everything. I was always assessing my strengths and weaknesses. I was just allowing every failure to pull down every other aspect of my life. So if I had a bad interaction with a girl, it affected not only the rest of my day, but it affected my outlook on myself. It affected how I thought about who I was. It affected how I felt about God. For me to have a bad interaction with a girl or to be rejected by a girl made me angry at God for making me this way, for giving me an opportunity to try to make something happen and then it not working, so I blamed God. And it wasn't something that I developed like as a teenager, because that's when boys usually get interested in girls. Like I said, this is something I was wanting from very young. This overarching thing of wanting to find love is something that has like directed the majority of my life, unfortunately. Like I said, I had my first kiss in kindergarten, right by the cubbyhole area where we put our jackets and things. It's very romantic. So between the ages of 6 and 28, I was literally consumed with this idea of what life was supposed to be about for me, which is finding love. Finding the love of my life. And everything else took a back seat to that when it came to like my emotions and my dreams. And don't get me wrong, I had friends, I had family, I had hobbies, I have great memories, and I was doing my best to live for God, to live for Him. I remember praying prayers like, God, I'll never ask for anything else if you just show me who she is. I remember praying prayers like, God, just let her please be attracted to short guys. When I would see a girl that was attractive, come on, just this one, God. Let her have a thing for short guys. I don't know. I remember just wishing that God would change things about me so that my hopes and dreams of finding love would happen. And I didn't care what that meant. Just make it happen, God. If I'm being truly honest with myself, it wasn't kids laughing at me. It wasn't the pointing, the jokes, the cruel words. It wasn't the fact that I was incapable of doing a lot of normal activities. It wasn't that I couldn't run as fast or jump as far. It wasn't that I was short. The thing that brought depression into my life and caused me to be consumed with discontent was that all of those things contributed to the inability for me to find love. Because if there was someone who accepted me, then none of that other stuff matters. And so all of these things revolved around this inability for me to find someone to love me. You know, I had it in my head that my life hinged on this goal of finding the woman of my dreams. And not one single person could say anything to change that in my head. Because I've heard a lot of things about being patient and letting God work and not trying to force his hand and all that stuff. I heard it all. but nothing could change how I pursued that goal. It didn't matter how many times I heard that God would bring me someone or who said it. I have a lot of respected people in my life. I just didn't listen. It wasn't what I wanted to hear. Because I had this idea that finding a woman would be the answer to everything. Finding love would be the answer to everything. The struggle to make it happen affected every area of my life. I couldn't focus in school. I couldn't focus at church. I couldn't truly enjoy myself around my friends. Everything was about finding love. It even got to the point that I didn't need the one. It got to a point where I just needed someone. I started lowering my standards, and I was in one of those relationships that was like on and off for a long time, and I knew it wasn't meant to be. But I stayed in the relationship because I would rather waste my time and my heart and my energy and everything than to live without what I thought life was all about, which is love. Which reminds me of an episode of The Office. I don't know if you like The Office, but it's just a sitcom on TV. And there's an episode where Michael, he's the main character, is in a relationship that's not a very good relationship. And he has made a pros and cons list of being in this relationship. And it's with Jan, is who he's with. And as he recites the cons on his list, he's listing all of them, and he says things like, she wears too much makeup, she's too insecure, and one of them he says, I'm unhappy when I'm with her, and he keeps going like that's no big deal, as if that's like a normal part of people's cons list when being in a relationship. I'm unhappy when I'm with her, and Pam has to say, wait, what was that last one? You see, part of the reason I enjoy The Office so much is because in the midst of all the satire, there are these moments that are so raw and real and speak so truly to so many insecurities that I've had that it's just a great show. I was willing to be unhappy for the sake of being what I thought would make me happy. I was willing to give up happiness because I thought in the end I would be happy. It made no sense. I can't make it make sense. It's just how my head worked. I thought I would rather be in a terrible relationship than not be in a relationship at all. I was convinced, contrary to all that I had been told, that getting married and having a family was the finish line. Like, that's the goal. That's what happens. That's what happens if you want to live a good life. You get married and have a family. Boom. You've done it. You've made it. I wanted to live for God. I wanted to help people. I wanted to make a difference. All that was very genuine goals of mine. But I needed to have love. I wanted to live for God, but I needed love. And so because of that, a lot of what I was trying to do for God was unsuccessful. I wasn't able to fully listen. I wasn't able to fully obey. I wasn't able to focus on the path that he had set for me. See, all that other stuff, living for God, that could happen at any time, but I thought, finding someone to love me, that needs to happen now. Fast forward to about mid-2016. The Jared that spent over 20 years of his life in turmoil about finding the one and getting to experience the fairy tale fantasy of living happily ever after. He's married, okay, to a beautiful, caring, amazing woman, and they have quite literally the cutest baby girl you've ever seen. It was everything I'd ever imagined and more. And yet, somehow, for some reason, my life wasn't magically made perfect. What the heck? this idea, this concept of if ... would just happen, if that could just happen for me, then I'll be happy. Then I won't be stressed anymore. Then I won't be worried. Then none of this other stuff would bother me if this would just happen. That idea was wrong. It's not that someone forgot to tell me that marriage isn't the finish line. It's just that I didn't believe them. I thought they were wrong. I thought, well, maybe for you it's not, but for me, I will be fully happy once I reach that dream. I was convinced that it would be the finish line to my happiness. I love Destiny with all my heart. I adore my sweet Aria. She's sweet sometimes. I cannot wait to hold my son and raise him to be a man. Ooh. But when you depend on someone to make you happy, when you depend on someone to solely supply your life with meaning and purpose and fulfillment, you are setting them and yourself up for failure. You know, I've worked ever since I was like 15 years old. And you have bad days at work, right? It happens. And when I have a bad day at work and I come home and Destiny has cleaned the house, cooked dinner, she's like, "Hey, Dada's home." And then Aria freaks out. "Whoa, Dada's home." She starts dancing. That it doesn't matter what day I had. Boom. It's perfect. When I come home to that, everything is perfect. When I come home and things are pretty crazy, no one welcomes me. I hear Aria screaming somewhere in the house and Destiny going, "Aria!" And I walk in and Aria's crying and Destiny looks like she wants to cry and she sighs and she says, "It's been a long day." Immediately, the same thing happens to me, except opposite. It doesn't matter what kind of day I had at work, because now I'm not feeling good. I have come home to a circus, and everything is bad, and my day is now bad, and supper is not ready. Not that that's like a big thing to me. I'm just saying, it's all part of the equation. Everything is just bad. You know, when Destiny gets angry at something, my energy level lowers. You know, we have a big problem with overcoming each other's energy. So if she's very upset, I often can't provide that happiness to lift her up because her mood pulls me down because everything depends on her. So if she's not 100%, I let it affect me. Because of how I've lived my life, everything is dependent on her. Everything is dependent on her providing me with this idea of being happy. So when I come home and she's not happy, my day is ruined. Sometimes things happen where it affects my entire week because of something that happens. Because everything I've lived for, I have now. And it's somehow not perfect like I thought it would be. In all those years of desiring love, by investing so much of my hopes and dreams and fulfillment and contentment and happiness, trying to invest all of that into my future wife, I unknowingly sabotaged the very thing I was aiming to achieve. I sabotaged myself. These past 3 years of my marriage have been some of the hardest, life-altering lessons I've ever learned. I've literally had to learn to reprogram parts of my thought patterns because nothing can make you face your flaws quite like being married can. Having someone to tell you what you are doing. I knew that we were going to have arguments. I mean, I wasn't, just because I wanted this fantasy life and thought it would be the answer to all my problems, didn't make me irrational. I knew that there were going to be arguments. I had no idea that so many of them would be based on me and how I act and do things and live life. Marriage is supposed to be riding off into the sunset. That's what it's supposed to be. You've done it. You're supposed to like all the movies I like, and you're supposed to like all the music I like. You're not supposed to tell me that I have a serious problem with conflict resolution. That's not part of the plan, okay? We're just supposed to watch movies and eat food and get fat and happy together. That's it. And in the midst of all this realization that life is so much more than getting married and having kids, in this past 3 years of marriage, this big life change that is happening in my thought pattern, in the midst of this ongoing epiphany that I was having, that, man, I've looked forward to this thing that is literally just the beginning of a new part of my life. It's literally the beginning to a lot of things in life. And I've been looking at it wrong this whole time. In the midst of this epiphany, I soon found myself repeating the same cycle, just with another goal. After realizing that getting married and having kids wasn't the end-all, be-all to everything, the weight of responsibility for providing for them became the thing that I subconsciously substituted for what was supposed to be first in my life. Yet again, went to Bible college, was in ministry ever since I was 15, was a youth pastor for 5 years, and I'm just now learning this stuff. I know. Once I realized that getting married wasn't the end, I subconsciously chose to fill that void of fulfillment by being the provider for my family. It's all about the Benjamins, okay? Got to get that paper so that my kids can eat, okay? And it's not because I didn't know better that I replaced this goal with another goal that wasn't what I was supposed to be chasing after. It's not because I've never heard that money can't buy you happiness. Yet again, it's because I didn't believe it. I didn't believe it. I remember all the times of hearing about celebrities that deal with depression, celebrities that have committed suicide, people in my own life that have been well-to-do, and yet their life seems to be in shambles. I see all that, and my first thought is not, oh, it's because they need God. My first thought is, I know I'd be happy with all that money. I know I would know how to do well with it, because I haven't had much my whole life. So if I had that much, woo, I'd be good. That's my first thought. I got a new job in October, and it's been quite the experience. I've never had a job where there was someone at the job that didn't like me, so that was a new experience for me. That is very rough. The person that was training me for my job seemed to have a lot of issues with me. I cannot tell you what they were because I don't understand, but they were very angry, and every question I had, the answer started with, so that's not a good thing. And it's been very stressful. It's a job that I have to know a lot of legal stuff. I have to know a lot about a lot of things. And the training process was 3 months, and they tell you you're still not going to get this. It's going to take you at least 2 years to have a good grasp of what you're doing in this job. And that is very discouraging. So it's been a rough few months for me. I've almost quit a couple times. Emotionally, it's just been rough in our household because of the stress of my job. And yet, I get paid almost double what I got paid before. and things have been declining. Things have been getting worse. I get paid almost double what I made before. Like, if there were two of me working at my job and both of them were getting a check, that's what I'm getting, and yet my household is crazy. I'm very stressed. Things are very bad. And the money, it doesn't seem to I don't seem to make more. It just doesn't happen. People tell me that, somehow money finds a way to not go as far, even when you make more of it. And I'm like, yeah, right. You make more money, do addition and subtraction, it's more. You could do more stuff. I don't know how it works, but somehow the money is the same. So don't ask me. I don't get it. But it blows my mind that I make almost double what I made, and yet somehow it's like our bills doubled also. I don't get it. And I didn't even realize it, but before long, I found myself doing the same thing with this job that I did with the previous 20-some-odd years of my life with finding love. I was giving the job everything. I was letting it take over everything. I was constantly, here we go again, thinking about it. I would come home and Destiny would know. I would just be quiet for a minute and she'd be like, quit thinking about your job. And I'm like, how do you know? It would just be on my mind. It's not because I wanted to think about it. It's not because I needed to think about it, because if anything, I needed to not think about it. I just couldn't not think about it. It was taking over my brain. I was just thinking about all the different things I had to learn and do and all the ways to be better at it. I was envisioning myself being better at it. I was daydreaming about being good at this job so it wouldn't be stressful for me. I was studying it. I was comparing myself to other workers, other new workers, asking how they did things, asking how they accomplished things. I was trying to express myself, what I was feeling, needing at least a minimum of 3 angry songs to listen to on the way home to try my best to reset my brain. At least 3 angry songs. That way I could walk in the door and be fine. That way all the anger would go through the music and boom. Some people don't understand that, but it works for me. Like, the music is angry for me. Okay, anyways. I was constantly trying to shake off the stress, however that could happen. I was constantly evaluating myself, constantly assessing my strengths and weaknesses in this job, trying to take all the bad feedback I had gotten from my mentor and trying to turn it into productive things, but it wasn't working. I was allowing every failure and every stress to pull down every aspect of my life. We stopped doing our devotionals. I started worrying about money more. I started just being stressed all the time. I've been longing for this job to suddenly provide me with something that it can't possibly provide me with. Fast forward again to a few weeks ago. Pastor Gary asked me to preach today. And my heart sank when I read the text because I didn't feel like I could. And I didn't want to because of where my life was at. And I straight up told him, I said, I would normally say yes, but honestly, I don't feel like I can clear my head enough to even put words to a page. I don't feel like I can get out of this slump of how I'm feeling in order to hear God's voice well enough to write a good message. And I went on to talk about how stressful my job was and how unhappy I was and that I just wasn't sure if I was in a place to speak. I use that a lot. I'm just not in the right place to do that. It's very annoying. I hate that I say that. He, of course, encouraged me and gave me sound advice. He was like, if you're miserable and you can't do anything for God, you probably shouldn't have that job. But in any case, he gave me some sound advice that encouraged me. I changed my mind. And I said, you're right. You're always right, Pastor Gary. I will preach. I got this. And I've been doing my best to hear from God the last few weeks to make sure I had right whatever he laid on my heart. And I believe that he has put me here today to encourage somebody. But not just to make you feel better about things that you are struggling with, things that are consuming you, things that are driving you, not to make you feel better about those things, but to encourage you to change. Contentment. What does that even mean? See, in America, we've been taught that contentment is linked to our accomplishments, constantly getting more. Our basic value is that more is better. We think, I'll be happy when I get married, or I'll be happy when I have a child, or when I have a second child, or when my marriage is functioning, I'll be happy again, or when we remodel the bathroom, or when I get my car fixed, or when I get a new car. The problem with this line of thinking is that the horizon is always moving. Every time you think you have what you wanted, there's something else further in the distance. And there's no end to our desire to acquire and do more. We'll never experience contentment that way. The true meaning of contentment is being satisfied with what you have and with who you are right now. But is this truly attainable? In his letter to the church in Philippi, the Apostle Paul, I love Paul, he shares the secret to being content. He knows the secret. You don't have to pay any money to find out. I'm going to tell you. Philippians 4, starting at verse 11, says this: "Not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it is with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or little, for I can do everything through Christ who strengthens me." See, all my life I've known Philippians 4:13. I've known that last verse. And I've always quoted it in the context of having a dream, having a goal, going through something difficult. I remember I had surgery on both of my legs, not at the same time, but after the first surgery, I was also on the golf team, and I remember I had walked all the way to the front nine, and I was on my way back, and my leg was killing me. And I remember the whole way back, I was just quoting, "For I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." And it helped me get there. So I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm just saying I've always quoted that verse in that manner, that I can do everything that I didn't think I could do because Christ is with me and he strengthens me. It wasn't until recently that I realized the context that Paul uses that verse in. It's on a much larger scale than just being able to do something you couldn't think you could do. It's about being content. It's about being fulfilled. It's about knowing that you know the meaning to life because God gives you the strength, because you have the meaning of life in your heart. And I don't want to preach a whole different message this morning, even though I could, but Solomon was someone in the Bible who spent his entire life trying to figure that out, trying to learn what life was supposed to be about because nothing was working for him. And I hope that my life can learn from Solomon's because he spent his whole life trying everything. Solomon tried luxury. Solomon first surmised that the material things of life would fill the vacuum in his soul. Thus he gave himself to the purchase of possessions, hoping to satisfy the hunger in his heart. His wealth was immense. His palace was magnificent. His household was huge. If he wanted to build something, he built it, or he had someone build it for him. If he wanted anything, if he wanted to do anything, he did it. If any man could have found permanent pleasure in material things, it would have been Solomon. But did it make him happy? Did it feel the aching emptiness of his heart? Listen to his own words in Ecclesiastes 2:11. Then I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit. He said, it means nothing. All this stuff I've attained, stuff I've made with my own hands, sometimes that gives a man pride. Solomon said, it does nothing. Even the stuff I've built with my own hands, I don't feel anything from it. So Solomon moved on to something else. He tried learning. He said, I will figure out by figuring out everything. When Solomon discovered that material prosperity does not give peace of mind, he turned to learning. He gave himself to the acquiring of knowledge, hoping to this stifle the monotony of his life. He became a prolific student. A careful study of the book of Proverbs reveals the comprehensive reach of his mind. He knew the natural environment of the beast of the field. He understood the nature of the flight of the bird in the air. He knew the customs of the fish in the sea. He burned the midnight oil. He drank deeply from the well of knowledge. But even this never brought him peace and happiness. A formal academic education is useful and required for many jobs in life, but it does not bring you peace. And we find that through Solomon, learning everything you can is not the answer. So he tried liquor. He's like, you know what? Give me some wine. After discovering that luxury and learning would not satisfy the deeper needs of his soul, he tried drinking. He thought perhaps that in wine he could find the answer to the problems of life. Maybe by not caring about the problems of life. I don't know. Being a man of wealth, Solomon ordered the best beverages that the times could produce. But he soon discovered that wine is a mocker and is a strong drink and raging, and whosoever is deceived thereby is not wise. Liquor never brings permanent satisfaction. One who is under the influence of alcohol is transported out of the land of hard reality into the land of make-believe. And there for a while, he can laugh at his problems. But when the drug wears off, he is right back where he started. And he said, drinking is not the way to life's problems. Solomon tried lust, or what society would today say, love. He tried love. He found no solution to his monotony and luxury and liquor and learning, so he turned to lust. He married 700 women and had 300 concubines. Girlfriends, basically. One has me. I'm good. It's no wonder that Solomon concludes in Ecclesiastes 7:26, I discovered that a seductive woman is a trap more bitter than death. Her passion is a snare, and her soft hands are chains. Those who are pleasing to God will escape her, but sinners will be caught in her snare. And so we see that lust didn't do anything for him. He tried a lot, apparently. Didn't work. A lot. So Solomon turned to the Lord. The message of the Bible is that apart from God, life is full of weariness and disappointment. King Solomon was gifted with keen intellect. He was versed in the affairs of human life. He was fed with every delicate thing this earth could produce. But he was a stranger to the sweet peace which every human heart craves. There is nothing under the sun that can permanently satisfy your thirsty heart quite like God can. Solomon found that life, with all its experiences, is but emptiness and striving after the wind if it is lived apart from God. Solomon did not let the matter rest with seeking happiness and luxury and learning and the other earthly pursuits. He turned to the Lord. He says, I know that it will be well with all those who fear God. It is vain to seek happiness under the sun. So God is speaking to you this morning, and he wants to know, what are you thinking about? What are you envisioning in your spare time? Some of those subconscious things you don't even realize you're daydreaming. What are you wanting to be better at? What do you find yourself seeing yourself doing? What are you studying? What are you Googling? What are you comparing yourself to? Asking others about? What are you trying to express? What makes you want to put pencil to the page and express the things you're feeling? What is making you evaluate yourself? What makes you care enough to want to be better? What makes you assess yourself? What is it that is affecting every area of your life? Because when God and his plan for you are the answer to all of those questions, your life will begin to have clarity. Your life will begin to have purpose and meaning, happiness and fulfillment. And trust me when I say this, it is not enough. It will never be enough to just know that. It'll never be enough to know that. You have to believe it. You have to live it. God has been teaching me, when you need me the way you needed to find love, you will have what you're looking for. You will have what you need. So I just want to encourage you this morning. You know, I would say that I've been a Christian my whole life. I would say that I've been following God my whole life. I would say that I've been chasing after the pursuit of being who God has called me to be. I would say that I've been doing that my whole life. But the truth is I haven't. I've been living my life and doing the best I can for God over here. I've been getting what I need to get done and doing what I can for God on the side. I've been worried about what would make me feel happy and then trying to find happiness while doing some ministry also. And it is not working. It's not. And it's not enough to have a bachelor's degree and to have been a youth pastor and to have helped people before. Because what is truly going to change my heart and bring me fulfillment is him. And putting him first. And putting that love first in every aspect of my life so that I can be a better husband, so I can be a better father, so I can be happy. So I want us all to bow our heads. I just want to challenge you this morning to think about what it is in your life that is directing your thoughts, directing your goals, some of the dreams that you have for how your life wants to be. And I just want to pray this morning that God, that his will would literally change those thought patterns. That he would give us a vision that is so much greater than what we've envisioned for ourselves. Dear Heavenly Father, I pray this morning that the words that we've not only heard today, God, but all the words that we've ever heard spoken by Pastor Gary and other preachers and other people of influence in our life that have spoken your word to us, God, that those would take seed. They would start to grow in our minds. Those words that we thought were gone, words that we've forgotten, plans that you had for us that we have thought we've missed. God, that there would be a new life growing in us this morning. A new desire, God. A change in the literal physical parts of our brain that lets us see what you have planned. God, that we would start desiring you, Father, over the worldly things we thought would make us happy. God, I pray right now that all those that have burdens, God, that you would take those, God. God, that we would be able to cast those aside and follow after you this morning. God, whether that be stress or worry or fear or just general unhappiness, God, that we would put you first this morning and strive after you, knowing that you are the reason for everything, Father. God, I pray that you would just begin to change hearts this morning, change our thought patterns, our behaviors. God, help those deep-rooted issues, God, to just new life would begin uprooting those things, Father. New goals, new plans that you have planted in us. God, we just thank you this morning for the changes that are going to happen. God, the seeds that are going to grow into new life this morning. We thank you so much for everything you are doing and that you will do in us and through us. And in your name we pray. Amen. All right. That's it.